but start it up.
I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Sains. That's Alan Gallant. And also, we're joined by my buddy Patrick McCray. Alan,
I'm here.
this is really interesting. So I do have a question. Howard here, the character of Howard, was he really like ready to like pull out of this? He's like, just fuck it. He's done.
I'm not entirely sure, but I would not be surprised, especially working with Liddy, who was, shall we say, mercurial at the very least. Yeah. He was, he was, I mean, the kind of thing that he would do was depicted in this when the kid pulls the gun, the toy gun out, and he pulls a real gun out. That's definitely in character for G. Gordon Liddy, no doubt about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hunt had some doubts, especially since they literally failed 3 times.
Yeah.
Well, they got it right.
Yeah, and you had a lot of.
They actually broke in, but then they got caught.
Yeah. I did like how they explained the fact of his rationale in this episode. It's like, okay, not only did we fail here 3 different times, it's like you had people going rogue on one of the missions. They already had a failed mission previously where the Cubans spilled the drugs all over the floor. And they talk about that a bit in this episode.
Yes.
They're like, no, not like that. They can't do it like that. So they have I like how they do, like, they're not necessarily recapping, but the fact of them mentioning is sort of like a bit of a recap in a way.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. He really rented an entire room?
Oh, yeah. They did all that stuff. Yeah, they did. They absolutely did all that stuff. Yeah. No. They tried to think of creative ways to get into that side of the complex because there's a whole bunch of buildings that were all linked together by breezeways and doorways and so on. So the Watergate is a complex, not just a hotel. Yeah.
Have you been there?
I've been past it, and I've never been inside of it.
Okay, neither have I.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, it's a huge complex. Pretty impressive.
Yeah. Hon, we need to take a road trip to Washington.
It's close enough to where you are, Jewel.
Yeah. I think I was in Washington once when I was very, very little, but I wasn't there too long. Julie doesn't want to go. Patrick,
for Reagan.
Yeah, what did you think of Howard wanting to pull out of the mission by the end? Like, he's ready to pull out. What did you think?
I don't blame him. It's, the tragedy of this is it's too late.
Yeah. Their success was their ultimate failure because they got into the place and then they got caught immediately. But yeah, I mean, I think it goes to Hunt's overarching sanity, where a lot of these other characters are drawn to be, if not crazy, on the edge of it. Yeah. And for various reasons, political fervor, whatever, or just congenital. You get a lot of people that are kind of cray-cray. What they haven't gone into, at least not yet, is the fact that Hunt's wife works for the CIA. She worked for the CIA in real life.
They touch on that. That's in the next episode.
Yeah. They haven't touched on it yet. But yeah, I mean, she was actually she was an advocate for the plumbers because her husband was one. After the fact. So.
What did you think, Patrick, of Liddy in this episode? He's fully committed, and he ends up. Well, both of you guys. He ends up. He talks basically Howard back into doing the final.
Yeah.
Basically, the job that's going to get them caught.
It's a vote, basically. Yes. He does this whole vote thing, and then when they succeed in getting in, Hunt momentarily, acquiesces and celebrates with him. But yeah,
he has a very good monologue about pants.
Yeah.
About Howard Hunt's pants. That to me is the highlight of the episode. You ask me right now, especially the weird words he uses.
It's
Like, I
almost
think he calls them
erotic the way
Strossy.
he's talking about it, and it's like, yes, I did mention your pants looked wonderful, but that was Miami, you know.
That's Miami. It's not Miami.
The tape on, it's funny because when I was a kid, my uncle had worked security for a election where it was at the R.W. Clark Elementary School here in Pennsylvania, which isn't too terribly far from where I live now. It's in Union now. And they were holding an election, and he told me to sit in a chair, be quiet, and shut up while he did his job. Basically, I had to sit there and not move. And I did that, and I remember distinctly them loading the votes into a truck with armored guards.
Oh, yeah.
Like shotgun. Like, if anybody went near that truck, I said, what happens if somebody tries to steal this? And my uncle said, those guards would shoot those people. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So, do you guys think that, now, was it like that back then in the 70s, or did they up security because of this?
Yeah, it probably wasn't something where they were going to yank a gun on you immediately. Although what happened in real life is that the guard noticed that there was tape over one of the doors. That clever little trick. Second time it happened, he called the cops.
Yeah.
And it was the police that came.
Yeah.
And so they weren't prepared to have a shootout with these guys. The standard security guys. They just weren't.
Yeah.
It was a hotel and convention center, basically, is what it was, in an office building. Wasn't like it was a, bank with gold bars and something like that, where you would have heavily armed.
Yeah, these weren't right. Alan's right. These weren't like, the security guards aren't like armed police officers or like constables or state police. They're just security guards who are making the rounds, checking the rooms. Because you see that early in this episode, which is really well done. Because when Howard rents the room, he comes in, he goes, "Hey, you got to get out of here. I got to lock up at 12. Like, you got to go. I got to lock up at 12." And he still makes the rounds too, which is because initially he takes the first tape off the door. And then when he comes back, he notices it again. And you're right. He's like calling. He's like, okay, there's something's up here. Something's going on. Which is, again, they debated this whole risk thing for going back again. Here's a weird question. How, like, do you guys know how different, like, for this final time, how different Liddy's mindset was and Howard's mindset was, perhaps, you think?
Well, I mean, they've been through the frustration of 3 failed attempts.
Yeah.
Some of which were just total bungles, and then one of them was that they just wouldn't leave, so they decided to call it quits. So obviously there's a lot of frustration there, which is why Hunt is just completely against doing it the 4th time. I think it's like this is something's telling us that this isn't going to work. We should probably listen. But Liddy, being Liddy, was like, no, I'm going to keep doing it until we go through a wall, and that was his. So you had these two, but again, ultimately, whatever simpatico they had won the day.
Yeah.
I mean, he did go through a wall. There were just bars on the other side.
That's right.
What do you guys think? They talk about the bugs that they planned, 2 of them not working.
That's one of the bungles. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a total bungle. They actually made it inside. They got a chance to do all of this work, to take pictures of the files, do all this sort of thing, and then the bugs don't do it. That was, that was a bungle, no doubt.
Yeah. It's really crazy too, because Howard's wife does say, "Don't do it. Don't do it. It's foolish."
Yeah. Well, this is the episode in which they start. It starts in the previous episode a little bit, but this episode is particular. He's really confiding in her about the nuts and bolts of this whole thing, and this is where you get the sense that she's done this kind of work before, or at least is familiar with, and has some kind of clearance because he's telling her all this stuff, and yeah, she's going like, maybe not. Come to Paris, and then she's really ripped when he doesn't go, which she should be.
Yeah.
And he hasn't paid the bill at the country club either.
Oh my
Crazy.
God.
I mean, that's the more mundane stuff, but that's the day-to-day stuff that keeps or explodes marriages. So
Was Liddy wanting to be more of a trained assassin in his life?
I was just dying to be a trained
yeah,
assassin. Are you
he
kidding?
was so wanting to be so that he always let people believe that he was.
Yeah.
He was very good at that. Well, he was extreme. He had an extreme attitude. He was intense. He was, he wasn't physically inept. He was just inept when it came to executing plans.
Did he ever get the chance to kill someone?
I don't think so. Not. I mean, at least nothing confirmed. He may have claimed that he did, but I don't know that there was any confirmation that he was ever did wet work either in the military, or actually didn't do anything in the military because he didn't go overseas.
It was his abdomen? They talk about that in
this. He burst his appendix doing what he claims it happened when he was doing a sit-up contest, of course.
Not sure.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, Howard here, or Hunt, doesn't go to Paris with his family, though he is really thinking about it. You could tell in this episode, he's like, man, we've failed so many times, everything goes wrong. That's another thing too. Was a lot of people's goof up. You see a lot of people's goof ups making just boneheaded mistakes. And the one guy in this episode, he actually goes rogue and goes off somewhere else. It's like you have literally the left hand not knowing what the right hand is.
Well, that's part of the reason they got caught, because they really did not have. It wasn't disciplined. It was a lot of ego, a lot of enthusiasm, and not as much discipline as they needed to have.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that they hired to come in from Cuba were not particularly good at what they did.
No, they weren't.
No.
They brought them on because they could trust them to be loyal and not say anything, and the skill set was secondary, I think.
If they had boiled this down just to a two-man job instead of having a bunch of people, would it have worked better or no? Would they just? Because that's sort of what it seems like too. They had all these people under them, and like everybody's messing up.
Yeah, you see like 8 of them walking up to the building. No, we're not suspicious looking. Briefcases and but yeah, I think that there's something to be said for maybe a little bit smaller, more efficient.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, group
maybe
of people.
3 or even 4 would have been better than having a whole sort of bumbling network of people.
So, sign in the sheet, Mr. Fidel Castro.
Yes,
couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Your ego will be your undoing, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, when they're in front of Mitchell and they're like, "We're gonna pee all over the,"
yeah,
like that's like, and then the actor who plays Mitchell, he just loses it. He goes, "You know who's gonna be in that room after that?
Me.
Oh my God!"
it was.
That's an Irish actor. I thought it was Tracy Letts at first.
Okay.
And it's not. And they had 2 different actors play Mitchell on the series. They had one play him in the first episode, and then later, the subsequent episodes, it was a different actor entirely.
There's also an actress that plays Kevin in this that's from Mad Men, so she knows the period. She played the Don Draper's daughter in that.
Okay.
She was still a little kid back then. Now she's 25. So
yeah, I think the girl from what is it, Sabrina the Teenage Witch,
Mm-hmm.
is in this episode. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, Melissa Joan Hart.
No, not Melissa
No,
Joan Hart, the
no.
new one. The new one.
Oh.
Is in, yeah, she's in this episode. She goes to Paris with the blonde hair girl goes to Paris with the,
That's the one from Mad Men.
Yeah.
Same girl.
yeah,
Forget her name. It's an unusual name.
yeah.
I'll tell you in a second here.
Mad Men, I think, since we're talking about TV series of this ilk and so on and so forth,
Yes.
its greatest strength for me is in its casting.
Yeah.
I think it is
Yes,
one
it is.
of the best cast shows
Yeah.
I've ever encountered.
It's weird because the one that the woman that they cast as Betty Draper, January Jones, is not my favorite actress at all, but she's perfect for the part. She's just so icy and sort of hemmed in and reserved in a lot of ways. The way
The
she's
thing I was
the young lady's name is Kiernan Shipka. Yeah. Which is why I can remember the name. It's a very unusual name.
Yeah. She was in another slasher movie here recently too, a time travel slasher movie.
Yeah. She's done a lot of work actually since she did Mad Men. I think she was only like 10 years old or something when she did Mad Men when she first started doing that. So.
Yeah, yeah. What's you guys' favorite scene in this episode?
Oh God. I actually, because I lived through those times, and I absolutely thought Nixon was an absolute villain. The scene where they get caught and interrogated by a bunch of liberals with McGovern pictures all over the wall. They're cops, but they're like totally like for McGovern. And one of them's got long hair because he's probably an undercover cop or whatever.
Yeah.
They're trying to escape desperately and awkwardly, packing their stuff up in the hotel room, and the guys in interrogation are trying to buy them time. They're not talking to them. So that was kind of interesting to me to see that the sort of the breakdown of everything. They get caught.
Yeah. Yeah, and to see the cops come in dressed as hippies too.
Yeah. A bunch of undercover cops. Yeah.
Like, hey, they're hippies. It could be the cleaning crew. It's like,
yeah, it's kind of ironic because one of their schemes involved again the hippies going into the presidential suite, peeing on the floor and doing all that stuff, and then they get busted by a bunch of fake hippies. So
oh, they got guns. They're cops.
Yeah.
At least they weren't shooting at you. It
No.
could have been worse. If it would have been Los Angeles, you'd be going.
Yeah. Possibly.
Wow, getting shot at. Oh my god! But no, that doesn't. They don't shoot at him though. But I do like how they're talking about. So, who really shot Kennedy? And I'm thinking, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's that guy. The guy that shot.
Yeah, that's what gets me too. Like people, like when I was in elementary school and I came into junior high, people were still like talking about that, and I said, they're like, and I'm like, Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy, and they're like, well, he didn't have shit. I'm like, dude, he was like in the Marines. He almost went to Vietnam. Seriously,
He was a sharpshooter too.
yeah, he was one shot. One shot is all he missed. Like one shot. Like, and I do that, like, going, and people are just like, what? Seriously, dude was fucking good shot. Like,
yeah, the magic bullet theory got shot down too because people kept assuming that limousine was a regular limousine. It wasn't. The back seat is elevated and the front seat is down below it, and that's why the bullet hit both of them the way it did.
And Kennedy couldn't go. He couldn't bend down because he had that
brace.
he had back brace.
He had terrible back problems.
Yeah, because of the war. I think
He almost always wore a back brace.
Yeah,
I actually sat in his in one of his rocking chairs because he used to the high back rocking chairs. That's what he would use because he could stretch his back out in them. There's one of his rocking chairs in the Eisenhower office building right next to the West Wing.
Yeah.
I could sit in that.
Yeah, I think that was his war injury too. Was his back?
I think it was partially that. He also had Addison's disease and some other problems.
Yeah, a lot of kind of had some issues.
He had some physical issues.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like when people are like, "Do you believe in conspiracy?" I'm like, "No, not really." I'm like, "Look, Oswald was a communist for sure, but that's like, look,
He
Lyndon
lived in Russia for a time. He took a wife while he was there. And then he came back to the United States. So
Lyndon B. Johnson knew all this. It's just that you got to understand the reason he suppresses it is because he didn't want. He thought it would cause World War III if he said, "Oh, Oswald's a communist." But it's like,
right,
it came out fucking later anyway.
It did. Yeah, by the time they did the Warren Commission, I think in '68, it was out.
Or commission's like, no, he's a communist.
Yeah.
No shit. No shit. Oh fuck.
Well, even Marina testified to the fact that, hey, I met him in Russia. He was a big, he was into the whole socialism thing and blah blah blah.
He leaves Russia because they're not communist enough.
Yeah, he got pissed off. Well, he also got pissed off because they were just kind of dangling him around. He thought they were going to use him for something, and they never really did. So,
well, here's the thing too. I will give him. I'll give Oswald credit for this and only this. You could have easily been killed in Russia, despite you being the communist.
Sure.
So it doesn't matter.
No. You say ex-Marine from the United States who wants to come to Russia? Okay.
Yeah, it's like
but you come, but we're gonna just watch you. And you sit there for a while. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's I guess it's like I don't really go down the conspiracy rabbit hole with the Kennedys.
I tend not to.
Yeah, it's like I don't.
One thing. It would have been so many people involved in it that you could never keep it a secret.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, look, if you this isn't this because I think this is the thing too. People obviously for years would compare Lincoln and Kennedy's assassination for years.
Yes,
and it's like I get why, but you got to understand. This isn't Lincoln's assassination.
No.
This isn't done in the theater.
No.
Well,
it's done in public, but it wasn't done in the theater.
Right. It's done with a rifle. God damn it.
Done by a sharpshooter.
That's it. Booth was an actor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who had to get in close. Because he
yes.
wasn't a sharpshooter.
Now there was always. I do remember the debate. Did Booth kill him with his pinky finger? And it's like, no, it was a bullet.
Yeah.
It's a bullet. Like,
small caliber pistol.
Very, very small pistol. But which is crazy. So yeah, I think my favorite scene is them being from. Other than them being in the hotel room and watching hippies like come in, fake hippies come in, is Hunt's discussion with Stanley because he tells Liddy, "Look, I'm done. This is crazy. This is just going to blow up in our face." He goes, "We're robbing it." Even Liddy goes, "We're going to rob it a fourth time," and the guy's like, "What? Nothing. It's my stuff." I'm like,
no, I mean, I'm sure there was some reticence, and if it was on anybody's part, it would have been on Hunt's part. Certainly not Liddy's. So I think they depicted that more or less correctly. It's I mean, obviously this is based on historical fact. The characters are real people or were people. So and the overarching events were all real events. You fill in the details here and there based on some stuff that you know and some stuff that you don't know, based on material that's been exposed in the 50 something years since it actually happened. But I mean, a lot of things were laid out at various trials and hearings and so on. A lot of stuff got laid out pretty well. We have people like John Dean to thank for that. Chuck Colson also kind of came clean, and several other people.
Did they come clean to save their asses?
Oh, some of them did, and some of them got kind of wrapped into something that they didn't realize what the ramifications of it were going to be. John Dean definitely knew some stuff that was going on, but he also was given pause by some of the things that Nixon was telling him.
Yeah.
That's how you got the connection between those guys and Nixon, was through John Dean, because Dean had meetings with him. And some of those were taped. Most of them were, actually, because they happened in the Oval Office. And, Nixon was talking about, we've got to do something about so-and-so and this and that, the election and so on. And it's all there.
Here's a question for you guys. When does Deep Throat start talking to the reporters?
Probably starts in 72 sometime.
Yeah.
And then really starts giving out stuff in 73.
Yeah.
But yeah, 72, everything's pretty hot, and it's not long after the actual events take place, I don't think, that they start having meetings in parking garages, etc., etc. Yes.
And he appears right towards the very beginning of the first episode.
Mhm.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
Played by Gary Cole, aka Lumberg,
Yes.
of
No?
Office
Yeah.
Space.
Yeah.
Cool.
Who's a wonderful actor, Steppenwolf actor, very
Yeah.
funny guy.
Yeah.
He was, back in 2012, he was one of my choices for who I would have gotten to play Barnabas.
Yeah.
He was my number two choice. My number one was Kyle MacLachlan.
Oh yeah, that would have been fun. McLaughlin would have been.
Now my number one is Bill Hader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
He does a pretty mean comedic Vincent Price. Why not do something serious?
He does, and it takes a comedian. I've been convinced of that. I think it's a part that Rowan Atkinson really should have ultimately played had they done it
Had
properly
he done
in
it
the
20
90s.
years ago? Yeah.
He would have been fantastic in
Yeah.
the 91 series, because he would have captured the incredible neuroses
Yes.
of Barnabas, and the relationship with Willie is Baldrick.
Yeah.
True.
Jim Fay is awesome as Willie.
Jim Fife. Yeah.
Yes.
Jim Fife went on to great acclaim as a private school teacher and administrator.
Yeah,
But that's what he's still doing.
At some job, there was one night I was scheduled to do an interview with him,
Really?
and the job ended that day,
Oh,
just shortly before, so I never did get the interview.
yeah.
But yeah, apparently he's very good.
Yeah.
Drama teacher, and so on.
If I could bring one person from the 2012 movie to not necessarily reprise his Willie Loomis, but to do John's Willie Loomis, it would be the guy who played Willie Loomis in 2012. He did a good job.
Oh, he was terrific. I mean, that was one of the real high
Jack
points.
Haley.
Yeah,
He's a
Jack
fantastic
Haley.
character actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the good choices.
Yeah.
His Freddy Krueger was pretty good too.
Yeah, and so I liked his
Rorschach.
I liked his Rorschach.
Yeah.
Rorschach was suitably.
Yeah, hell of a job.
I misunderstood what I heard in a trailer, and I thought it was going to be Ron Palillo. I was going to Horseshack from Welcome Back, Kotter. I thought he was going to sort of be the familiar, like, Welcome Back, Kotter thing, and then the Night Owl would have been Gabe Kaplan.
Gabe Kaplan as the comedian.
Yeah, you John Travolta is Ozymandias.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts to fit in.
Does.
Ozymandias also probably gay.
Probably.
It just all
He's
fits.
either gay or ace, one of the two.
Yeah.
That won't. Let's see. Is there anything you guys want to add about this episode before we get on out of here?
It's a great one. I mean, it for me, it is a wonderfully satisfying series of disappointments
Yeah.
that the
Yes.
Watergate break-in is supposed to. How do you make it? How do you do both things? Make it sort of like, oh God, that's all, and yet satisfying. And they did it.
No, no, we got one more episode
Good
to
night,
do.
Julie.
Hi.
Actually, Patrick, what was your favorite scene in this episode?
I already told you it's the
Oh,
pants.
oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, I like also the getting trapped in the linen closet and
No.
saying don't drink the whiskey at the
Yeah.
at the
Watergate.
Watergate.
The whiskey has a certain
I
kind
think
of water in it.
It was a wonderful up yours to the entire experience that Hunt had.
Yeah.
That he left it. That he did not replace it.
No, he just left a bottle somewhere. on a
Someone will
shelf.
discover that.
That's
No.
I've had scotches so bad that
Okay.
I'm not sure I would have been able to tell the difference.
yeah.
Some J&B.
Yeah.
I've had some J&B. There's
Yeah.
some Cutty Sark. There's
What's
It's-
the worst?
That's mixing booze to you, my friend. You're not supposed to
it
drink.
is.
it.
What's the worst beer you've ever tasted? I don't drink beers. I would.
Beer.
Top
Worst-
Hat. Top Hat out of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
Gives you you
Top
take
Hat.
3 sips and you've got a headache. I mean, that's how bad it was.
That's horrible.
It's pretty horrible. It was. I don't even know if they make it anymore. That was probably the worst I ever had. That was back when I was. Oh my God. I think I had my first sip of Top Hat when I was like 19.
Yeah. That's crazy. Like that's it. Like my brother would tell me, he goes, "You don't drink, so let me tell you, natural ice is the worst." I said, "I wouldn't know." When
If you like flavor,
There are times in your life
are terrible.
when it's the only companion.
Yes.
yes, I'm sure. Here's the thing. It's like I never drank it. When he told me that, I'm like, I'll take your word for it.
Mhm.
But like, it's your
The second choice would be Peel's Real Draft Warm. Absolutely horrible. If it's ice cold, you can get it down.
What's your stance on Little Kings?
White Castle and Little Kings, and you're not fit to be
White
around
Castle?
2 days.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
they do go together.
They do. Unfortunately, they don't go together in your colon.
Episode 4 tomorrow, guys. We're
Sounds good.
10:30.
Sounds great.
10:30.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jewel.
Link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Daybook on Bow is going to be in the description box. Link to Galant's YouTube channel, Collins Sport After Dark, is going to be in the description box. Whatever you do not pee on the floor because you'll never know who's going to be in the room next.
No.
In John Mitchell's suite. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's right. That's right.
Good night.